Hi guys, I'm Brett from Brett Photo Art and welcome to another Photoshop editing tutorial. I try to keep the tutorials simple and clear and short so that you can learn as much as possible in a short period of time. Welcome to the tutorial. And welcome to my Photoshop Fundamentals Editing Techniques video. All the videos that I do are designed for beginner to intermediate users of Photoshop. So we don't take things to advanced levels. We try to keep it quite simple and explain it to you in a way that you can understand. Okay, so today we're going to talk about vignettes. Vignettes are certainly a really important part of the editing process, because if we bring this image up on the screen now, you can certainly see there's an image without a vignette, and we'll apply a vignette to that image and you'll be able to see the difference that a vignette makes to that image. There's the vignette on the image, and there it is without. I've made this vignette quite harsh on this image just so you can really get an idea of what a vignette is designed to do. And essentially what a vignette is designed to do to your image is really draw attention into the center of the image, or kind of darken the edges if you like, and really draw the viewer's eyes into the image, into the depths of the image. So what makes a good vignette is basically a good vignette is a vignette that you can't see where the vignette starts and finishes. So its gradient, if you like, works really subtly and you can't clearly see a line where the vignette starts and finishes. So I've got about 4 different techniques in which I use for vignettes. So depending on the image and depending on where I want the vignette to be in the image, I use different techniques. So today we're going to talk you through those techniques. So we're going to turn that vignette off and we're going to start again, and we'll talk you through the different techniques so you'll be able to see the difference that a good vignette can make to your image. So really what you want to do is get your image up on the screen. The first thing you want to do is duplicate your image. So you want to duplicate a layer of that image, and the easiest way to do that is to hit Command J on your keyboard. I'm using a Mac computer. If it's a Windows computer, I think it's Control J will create a layer. So we hit Command J. Over here on the right hand side you'll see we've created a layer. So we're going to apply the vignette to that layer. The first 2 vignettes are going to show you are vignettes that we can use from Camera Raw. So quite simply all we need to do then, we've created our layer, we go up the top here to where it says Filter. We click on Filter, and if we scroll down we'll see this section here, Camera Raw Filter. So we click on that and that will open our image up in Camera Raw. So we do that. Okay, so now here's our image opened up in Camera Raw. Now there's 2 different type of vignette techniques that I'm going to show you here. One of them is quite simply a default technique that's already in the system, and it's very easy to use. We come up the top here, if we look across here, if we look under FX, the letters FX, and that is effects. So if we look down here, you'll see this section here, post crop vignetting. That's the section we're going to use. That's basically a default vignette, very easy to use, and sometimes that can work really well. So the way in which I use that is there's 5 sliders here. I really only sort of play with 3 or 4 of these sliders. So what I do is I grab the top one, so that controls the amount of vignetting that you use, and I take it right over to 100. So that's the strongest sort of vignette that you can get. The other ones that you can muck around with is the midpoint, and basically if I pull that you'll see the difference that makes to the image. Depending again on the image as to how much you want to give that midpoint. I will say we're not going to use this at 100 at the top. We're going to pull that back later, but I take it to 100 to start with while I adjust these other sliders. So the midpoint, for me, I'd probably, on this image, I'd take it to probably somewhere about there. Roundness, you'll see what happens when I play off this one. It affects the roundness of it, probably
I don't tend to move this one too much, quite often leave it right where it is in the center. And then the other one here that's quite important is feather, and basically the feather controls I guess the taper or the gradient of the vignette. And that's pretty important because you don't ever really want to be able to see where a vignette starts and finishes. A good vignette, you can't really tell, it just slowly grades from dark to light. Basically, the feather I run anywhere between 50 and 75, depending again on the image. On this particular image, probably about there is good, which is about 60. So I'll set it for 60. Okay, we've set those. We then come back up the top to the amount, and you can see that the edges of this are really way too dark. So we're going to start pulling that back towards 0. And as a general rule, I probably, and again it depends on the image, how dark it is, what sort of effect you're trying to achieve. But as a general rule, I'm probably setting this here somewhere between 5 and 25. In this particular image, it kind of lends itself to being quite dark and moody. You could probably go to about there roughly, which is quite dark on this particular one. So that's about it. If you want to see the difference, the before and after of the vignette, you can click down the bottom here. You see these double arrows. It says swap before and after. So you can click on that and you can see the before and after view of the image with and without your vignette. So there it is without, and there it is with. Okay, so that's one technique straight away. That's the default vignette under Camera Raw. Okay, so that's one. Okay, so we're going to cancel that. I'm going to show you another vignette, which is if you were to be happy with that vignette and you wanted to use it, you would just click OK. That would take you back to your Photoshop screen, and here is your layer, and your vignette is on that layer. You can click that on and off here and see the difference that vignette has made. Okay, so we're going to show you the second technique now, which is also in Camera Raw. So each one of these I'm going to start from scratch so I can show you every process along the way. So again, we start from our bare image and we create a layer. So again, Command J on the keyboard, or Control J if it's a Windows computer. Command J creates our layer, and there's our layer there on the right hand side. Okay, again we're going to take this to Camera Raw. So up the top we go Filter, click on that, opens up this panel, Camera Raw Filter, click on that, takes us back over to Camera Raw. Okay, the filter, the vignette we're going to use now, we're going to use a Radial Filter. And what we can do there is, if we really want to pick out a particular area of the image that we want the viewers to look at, we can really single that area out. So we go up the top here to this little egg-shaped thing. That is a Radial Filter. So we click on that. And for me, when I look at this image, I think, well, where do I want the viewers to look? I want them to kind of start looking at these rocks in the foreground, go straight up through the middle of the image, through these little shiny waves, all the way up the middle and to the base of the waterfall and sort of up the waterfall. So I really want the viewer's eyes to start down low here and go straight through the middle of the image up to the waterfall. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw with my Radial Filter. And again, you just hold your mouse down, you hold the left side of the mouse down, and you draw your Radial Filter. And you just keep holding your mouse down. For me, I'm going to probably put it about somewhere like that. And you can then just obviously let go of the mouse, and you can see that that's your Radial Filter. You can just pick that up now, hold your mouse down and move that where you want it to go. So you can see what I'm doing here. I'm trying to have my viewing flow like from the bottom here in through the middle of the image and up to the waterfall. You can move this filter around any way you want. Just pick it up and move it. Hold your mouse down and move it around. If you want to make it wider, you can pick one of these edges up with the double arrows, drag it out to make it wider. If you want to make it shorter, you can see the little box on the top there. You can pick that up and make it smaller. And if you want to tilt it from side to side, you just hold your mouse slightly above it like so, and you'll get those curved arrows, and you hold your mouse down and you can tilt it side to side like so. So for me, probably about there actually. and then I can move it probably about there. So that is the inside area that I kind of want the viewers to look at. So what this is going to do is darken all around the outside of it. If we come over here to the right hand side, we'll see down the bottom here where it says effect, we've got outside and inside. So basically what that means, that radial filter that we've just drawn, whatever changes we make will either affect, it's ticked inside, so that means it'll only affect inside that area, or if we click on outside, it will affect everywhere outside of that area. So to do a vignette, we would want to do outside. Another way, another technique, just down the bottom here, you'll see these little tick boxes here. One says overlay, one says mask. If you want to see the area that the vignette is going to affect, you can tick this box that says mask, and you will see that area goes white. So that's sort of the area you can see that it's not really affected anywhere in the middle here, but it is quite obvious on the outside. So that's sort of the area that will be affected. And your feather slider here controls, as I spoke about earlier, that controls how strong the gradient or the taper is. And if I play with that now, you'll see that mask change quite significantly. As a matter of fact, again, with the feather slider, I probably run between 50 and 75. In this instance, you could do 50. And you can also come back over here to your filter and move it around. So for me, probably about there, I reckon. Okay, now I'm going to turn that mask off now. Let's click that off, and we've got outside, meaning that whatever changes we make here will only happen outside of that radial filter. You can do whatever you want here, but as a general rule, I zero all these sliders back to zero, and the easy way to zero them is just double click on these little slider arrows, double click on each one, and that will take them all back to zero. Okay, now there's a couple of ways in which we can darken the outsides here, but basically the way I do it is to adjust the exposure. So I'll just pull the exposure down. So probably about there, roughly 0.45 as a general rule. Again, it depends on the image, how dark it is, what sort of effect you're trying to achieve. I probably normally pull the exposure down anywhere between 0.3 and 0.6. 0.3, if it's a lighter image, 0.3. If it's a darker image like this one, that's pretty good where that is now, so 0.45. Okay, so that basically is how a radial filter vignette works. Now, as you can see, you can't tell where the vignette starts and finishes, and that is a sign of a good vignette. You look at so many images these days, and you can clearly see they're very, very dark on the edges, and they come in sharply, and you can see where the vignette starts and finishes. You don't want to be able to see that. I could make that even a little bit darker to be fair, probably about there. Basically, when you look around the edges in the dark parts of this image, you never want anything to go completely black. You still want to be able to see the detail there, and you can see that with this. Again, down the bottom here, these twin arrows, we can click before and after and see the difference before and after our vignette is made. Click that on and off. That's quite a nice vignette actually. It works really well on that image. So that's a radial filter in Camera Raw. Quite easy, not too hard to work out. It's this little egg-shaped thing at the end here, radial filter. You draw the filter and the area that you sort of want the vignette to be applied to, and then make your adjustments on the other side here. So again, we'll click OK. It will take us back to Photoshop, and there's our layer with our vignette on it. We can click on and off that visibility there and just see the difference that vignette has made. So that's before the vignette, and that's with the vignette applied. Actually a really nice subtle vignette, that one. It works really well on this image. Looks good. Okay, so they're the two Camera Raw vignettes. There's two more I'm going to show you, so there's a total of 4. I'll delete that one, and we'll start from scratch again each time. Just hit the delete key, we'll get rid of that layer. So we'll start again. Now the next one I'm going to show you is called the elliptical mark tool. I always have trouble pronouncing that word, elliptical mark tool. So again, we'll create another layer. So that is Command J on our keyboard. There's our new layer. If we look up here on the left hand side, second from the top, we'll see this little dotted circle here. If we hover our mouse over that, it'll say elliptical mark tool. Okay, now this is a vignette that again works quite similar to the last one we just showed you. We don't go to Camera Raw, we do it right here in Photoshop. So click on the elliptical mark tool, and again we get this little crosshair come up on the screen, and again we're going to draw our shape. So we hold the mouse down and we draw a shape, and again we'll do a sort of an egg, a long skinny egg type of a shape, something like that. Let go of it. Okay, and then we hover in the middle, we get this arrow come up, and we can move that where we want it to go. If you want it to be right in the middle, I've got that snapped right into the middle, so we'll put it there. Okay, I'm just zooming out. You can see the area that the vignette's going to affect. Okay, so the next thing we want to do is we want to right click outside of that egg shape we've just made. So just come up here, make sure you're outside of it, and right click, and you'll see an option come up there, select inverse. So we want to click on that. So we select inverse. What that's actually done is inverted the selection, so it's now selected all this area around the outside and not the area on the inside, meaning whatever changes we make now on this layer are going to affect this outside area. So we're going to use a curves layer to affect this vignette. Now our feather on this particular style of vignette is up here at the top. It says feather, and I've got mine set at 1000 pixels, which is as high as it'll go. So that's quite a very, very subtle feather, so it'll feather from the inside right out quite subtly. I again would probably have that somewhere between, depending on how harsh you want the vignette to be and on how subtle you want the feather to be. Again, I would tend to set that somewhere between 600 and 1000 pixels. I'm just going to leave it there at 1000 for now, just so you'll be able to see. But again, if you want to change it, you just click up there and type in, 600, 700, whatever you may want it to be. Sorry, I'll just redraw that. That's gone. Just redraw that. Move that back to the center. And again, we'll just right click outside of that and select inverse. Okay, so we're going to use a curves layer now. So we're working on this layer here. So we come down the bottom into the middle here, and this is obviously, you'll see this one in the middle. These are all our different layers, or create new layer. Click on that, and there's all the different layers we can affect. So we're going to use a curves layer. So we come along here to curves, and we'll select curves. And that brings up here, this is our little curves adjustment here. And if we look over here on the layer, you can actually see the area that's white. You can see what area the vignette's going to affect. And because I've got that feathered at 1000, you can see it's really, really subtly, the gradient's really subtle there. So quite simply, all I normally do here is just grab the curves layer right in the middle and bring it dead straight down on that line in the middle. So probably even you could come down to about there. Make sure it's right in the middle. It tends to work best. Let go of that. And you can see the difference that's made. So that's just using the curves layer. And if we turn this layer on and off here with our little visibility, you can see the difference that's made. Again, that works really nicely on this image, actually probably almost better than the other ones that we used earlier. Looks really good. You can again come back up here to the curves layer. You can adjust it. You can make it a lot darker if you wanted to. That's entirely up to you. It's really personal taste, how you like your vignette to be, how dark, how light, how subtle. That's a real personal thing. All I say is when you're doing your vignettes, just be careful that they're not too dark and make the edges black. You want them to be quite subtle. So just clicking on and off there, that works really well on this image, that vignette, really, really nicely. So that's using the elliptical mark tool and a curves layer. And again, once if you were happy with that, you would just flatten that image, or you could just keep that layer there. It's entirely up to you how you want to go through your workflow there. So that's another technique. So we've now shown you 3 different techniques. There's one more to go, which is the lens correction technique. You're probably wondering, why am I showing you 4 different ways of doing vignettes? Because I often play around with different methods on different images. Some just seem to work better on certain images than others. And if you're particular about your editing like I am, I still play around with different versions of vignettes to see which one suits the best. I'd probably say so far on this image that that particular one there seems to work the best. It's really nice. It's a really nice vignette, that one. Okay, so that's the elliptical mark tool method. I'm going to delete those layers and start again, and we're going to show you the lens correction method, which is the final one. So just delete that layer. Delete that layer. We'll go back to the start again. And once again, we start from scratch. We create a layer, which is Command J on your keyboard, or Control J if it's a Windows machine. So Command J, there's our layer. Okay, so now this particular vignette is called the lens correction. So let's shut that there. Come up the top to filter. Last one we used was camera raw. Just below that, lens correction. So click on lens correction. That'll open up our image in another window, and this is where we'll be able to use the lens correction vignette. Now, the only thing we really need, sometimes I have noticed when you open this up, some of these boxes here can be default ticked. You don't want those ticked because they'll affect the distortion of your image. So if they happen to be ticked, just untick those. The thing we want to do here is press this custom button. Click on that, and we're only going to use 2 sliders here. We're going to use the under vignette here, the amount, and this midpoint, dark and lighten slider here. Again, the first thing I do here is take it all the way to the end. So I pick up that vignette slider and go all the way over to -100. And then I grab this midpoint one here and I have a bit of a play around with that. I probably wouldn't go much further than that. I could probably go to about there, but again, this is personal choice, and again, it really depends on the image how you like it to look. I would say this midpoint one, I normally have that somewhere between about 15 and 30 as a general rule. That looks pretty good there, and again, that's a pretty natural vignette. If you look around the edges, they're not too dark. There's still plenty of detail in these rocks. It looks pretty good. So we're not going to adjust this amount here. We're going to do it on the layer. So once we're happy with that, I'll just leave that at -100. That midpoint looks pretty good there. We click OK. That'll take us back to Photoshop again. And down here on our layer is our lens correction vignette. We can switch that on and off here with the visibility, this little eye, and see the difference in which that vignette has made. Works really well on that image as well. You can see what it's doing. It's, as a viewer of the image, it's really making you look into the image, into the middle of the image, and that's what you want. That's what you're trying to get the viewer to do. That looks pretty good the way it is. It is quite a dark vignette, but it looks pretty good on this particular image. Now, if we wanted to change the strength of that, if you think that's a little bit too strong, all we need to do is come over here where it says opacity, click the little drop down arrow next to 100% and pick up that little slider, and this is where we can change the strength of it or the opacity of it. So we can pull that back, right back to 0, and then just slowly start adding that vignette in. Probably, and you can just again set that wherever you might like it to look. I think you could take it probably to about there even, so that's 88%. But again, it's personal taste, it's what you like. There's no right or wrong when it comes to photography, it's whatever you like. So that's about it, guys. That's 4 different techniques in which we've shown you to apply vignettes. I hope you found them all fairly easy to follow. It's really up to you. You'll more than likely you might watch this tutorial and you might try all 4 different techniques and just find one that you particularly like the most, and you probably just stick to that, which is fine, absolutely fine. The ones I tend to use are the ones where I have a little bit more control over the vignette, where I can sort of draw the area where the vignette goes, so probably more so the one using the elliptical mark tool or the camera raw one using the radial filter. But having said that, these other ones work fine as well. So that's about it for today, guys. That's 4 different vignettes I've showed you. I certainly hope you've enjoyed it, and most importantly, I hope you've learnt something. Please, by all means, leave some feedback. I really would like to hear what you've got to say about what I'm explaining and what I'm showing to you. If you like it, if you dislike it, by all means, leave a comment and leave feedback. There's plenty more videos coming. I really do urge you to subscribe to my YouTube channel. I'm planning on constantly running out these Photoshop fundamental editing techniques videos. There's going to be plenty more of these to come on all different techniques. So by all means, if you like it, subscribe to my channel and you'll be the first to see the new updates when they come out. Thanks for watching, guys. I hope you've enjoyed it. Have a great day.
Well guys, that's it. I hope you enjoyed the video and I certainly hope you learnt something. If you'd like to know more about my services, please visit my website, brettwoodphotos.com. You can have a look at my photography tours and the other services that I offer. And also, if you'd like to purchase some camera related equipment, by all means, check out our friends at Photoshop, photoshop.com.au.